Good afternoon, everybody, and we're seeing some numbers join this call. This Tuesday's at 2 with Dale Romans. Should warn people with a quarter century of friendship between myself and the estimable Mr. Romans. It can get pretty thick, pretty deep, sometimes entertaining, but always intimate in many respects. Dale, are you on the line? I see.
Looks like
Terry?
he's not here yet.
Okay, not here yet.
I'll check in with him.
We're getting some folks jumping in. So we'll start this call in about 30 seconds to a minute here as we start to pile up the numbers of folks on the call right now. But I'll say periodically, you have joined Tuesdays at 2, brought to you by West Point Thoroughbreds. Still waiting on Dale joining the call, and then we'll get rolling here. Will say, having been on the backstretch this morning and spent a few moments with Dale, it is starting to ramp up in a major league way. The 2-year-olds beginning to to get to the races, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a second here. But we're almost there, and that's an exciting time of the year as the 2-year-olds that have a little bit more distance pedigree to them are beginning to get their first starts. And I'm told by Tammy Fox that Dale is on. Dale, can you hear me?
Dale, hit *6 if you're hearing us, but can't hear your own voice come through here.
Maybe that you're muted. Dale, if you can hear me, hit *6 with your phone. He can hear us. Okay, so you can't speak to us yet. I'm going to text Tammy here. Can he hit? Let's see, *6 in order to unmute.
How about now, Dale?
Dale, can you
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Beautiful. Hello. Yes. All right, we're back in business.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, good. Yes.
All
Mr.
right.
Zoom user, that's why.
All right.
All right. Let's get rolling here, Dr. Romans. And
can
thanks
you see
for joining
me?
Yeah,
I can
hear
me.
You. Pardon? I can hear you fine, Dale.
Can you see me?
No, I can't see you. Can't see you.
Somebody tell me how to do that. I'll put my video on. I shaved.
I'm not.
You see a start video button? It's like a movie camera.
It's over in the left-hand corner. Left-hand lower left-hand corner. It says stop video or start video. It's a little.
Yeah, it usually has that, but on mine it does not today. It has mute. It has raise hand, chat, QA.
Tell you what, we're going to have to do without your handsome mug. We're just going to deal with your dulcet tones today.
Okay. I'll keep working.
As the TV people say, he's got a face for radio.
Well, Tammy said he doesn't have that particular icon down in the lower left-hand corner, and so I'll take that as gospel, and we'll move on. Dale Roman.
I just changed it right now, Dale.
So join. Wait a minute.
Join as panelists.
Panelists,
okay.
Do that.
Okay. I'm praying for it to happen because I know the last.
Okay, how's that? All right, I didn't want to shave for nothing.
Don't see you yet. Do you have one of those little, that little symbol for a camera. There we
Yeah, I
go.
got it on. I see myself.
I can see you. You're good. Now, do one last thing. Flip the phone or camera over so we can. That's it.
All right.
You're golden.
Thanks, Dale.
All right, Slim. Let's get rolling here. Dale Romans, happy to call him, and he says this rarely. Actually, no, he says it quite a bit. Friends all over the country. He is my good friend, Dale Romans. Terry's good friend, Dale Romans. The industry's good friend, Dale Romans. So delighted to have him here. Many of us know Dale's credentials, his curriculum vitae to a T, pretty much from top to bottom, but we do have a few new partners on these calls. So we're going to do a quick run through. He's been a licensed trainer since the age of 18 and probably doing things as a trainer before that time. He got his first win in February of 1987, a year after Terry and I were out of college. He was born really for this. His dad was a top Kentucky trainer, Jerry Romans, and Dale first walked a horse over to the Churchill Downs paddock as a groom at age 12, walking over from the same barn 4 that Dale's stable occupies at Churchill today. He's won 3 Breeders' Cup races, the Dubai World Cup, graded stakes all over the country. His top horses include the Preakness winner, Shackelford, Breeders' Cup winners, Court Vision, Little Mike, Tappett's Fly, Dubai World Cup winner, Roses in May, Kitten's Joy, Patio Prado, Silver Max, Promises Filled. I'm going to throw in Seven Trumpets as one of his top horses because I really believe he was one of his top guys for us. So Dale, welcome. I hope I've done your career justice in about 30 seconds time. Anything else you want to add in?
No, but thank you, Jeff. I volunteer to do these anytime you need me just for the introduction.
Lovely. I'll keep them coming. Before we get into the individual horses with you, I wanted to ask you about the next big thing in horse racing. It's a huge new wrinkle. The Belmont Stakes going to be run at Saratoga in about 10 days. Are we going to see you up there? Maybe Coppola and the Jaipur? Are you running anything up there?
We're planning on running Coppola and planning on coming up. I mean, it would be sad to miss that event. It's going to be historic. It's going to be a great weekend. If anybody can be there, they should. Mark Holliday's behind the whole thing, my good friend that runs Naira, and anything he does is first class.
Wonderful. Well, I did want to ask you about that because, you've hit the board in a bunch of times in the Belmont Stakes and in the Triple Crown. You've won a big race at Saratoga, the biggest of all, the Travers in 2015, beating American Pharoah with Keen Ice. So let me ask you a little bit about the distance because it's reduced to 1.25 miles to make it, fit the circumference of the track as opposed to 1.5 miles. Is it still fair to say that you got to have a horse with that certain extra bit of stamina to win 2 turns going on the dirt there?
But it's definitely not 1.5 miles. That's the test of champions, they always call it. But it's still going to be good. It's been changed distances a couple of other times and run on other racetracks. It was run at Aqueduct twice. Jeff, are we having technical problems? Hello.
We hear you,
Can
Dale.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, Jeff froze up on me for a minute. Now, like I said, it's been run at Aqueduct a couple of times when they were rebuilding Belmont quite some time ago, the one they just tore down. And it's going to be a different feel and a different vibe. One thing I'm kind of happy for is everyone was talking about if there was a Triple Crown winner, would there have to be an asterisk next to the name? Well, we don't have to worry about it this year. Then we'll have one more year at Saratoga next year, and then we're going to be back at Belmont for a limited capacity crowd in 2026.
It's a thing that is happening with a number of these tracks where the Triple Crown is located. Obviously, Churchill has done an incredible amount of renovation. It is a different place from what it was a year ago. It's a dramatically different place in terms of entertainment and hospitality, and I think most of it's for the good. So I see it as a positive in racing. Let's talk about the roster that you have and are gonna have, and I say that because we're going to start with the newcomer. This is a colt by Good Magic that we were able to reel in at the Fasig-Tipton sale of 2-year-olds that just took place last week. So we're really talking about a horse that we bought literally a week ago. He's a grandson of Curlin. Good Magic is a young sire, by Curlin. He's had quite a bit of success in a short amount of time at producing horses for the Triple Crown Trail and the Kentucky Derby. He has a winner already with Mage, but I did a little research, Dale, just as I was talking to one of the partners earlier. This is what Good Magic has done in a year's time. He's produced Mage, Muth, Society Man, Dornoch, Reincarnate, Blazing Sevens, Curly Jack, and W&L. Those are all Derby, sort of on the Derby trail, Derby starters, and a Derby winner. So my question to you is, what do you think of Good Magic as a young stallion in terms of producing classic horses, Triple Crown horses?
You stole what I was going to say. Of course, haven't seen the horse yet other than pictures and the video of his work. And he's got a beautiful stride, as you can see right here. And this is a great picture of how long his stride is, and what a good work he has in the video. But besides all that, he does fit everything that I look for in a Derby profile. We've talked a lot of times about when I go buy colts, and we've made the Derby 11 times. We haven't been able to win it yet, but you keep making it. One of these days, you're going to win it. And he jumps through every hoop with his looks, with his pedigree analysis, with all the science that goes behind buying a horse, with the stride. Everything about him points to the Derby profile. And, they always say, well, now it's down to 20,000 horses born a year and 20 make it to the Kentucky Derby. That's true. But I think if you start looking at profiles, you can shrink that number down into the few thousand probably. And this horse fits in that pool. And that's a pretty good start with a young horse.
I bet you figure that when you get a horse like this, and we've talked just in a brief amount of time here about how he fits your profile. When you get a horse like that, do you feel like you're a couple steps with your experience ahead of the game in trying to get him on the trail, like with a stretch ride last summer, for example?
I feel like I'm in that little pool that can get there. I think I use a negative prediction on everything. So you start throwing out, the first thing you do is the fillies. The second thing you do would throw out the strictly turf pedigrees, horses that aren't going to be able to run on the dirt. And then you start throwing out all the sprint pedigrees. And, you can actually boil it down to a pretty small pool of horses that are legitimate get to the Derby contenders. And when you start there, good things can happen. And that's, you strip down all the negative prediction and he's still left standing. And that's the only thing you can ask for in a horse. And then you have a lot of things go right, of course, after that. But at least you've given yourself a chance to be in the game.
So the phone call from Terry to you said, hey, we're sending you a Good Magic colt that's from a family of a couple stallions. You're like, yeah, I got to find some space for him in my barn.
Yeah, exactly. And then Terry and I talk a lot about this type of thing. And he knows my feelings. I want to win me a Kentucky Derby, and I would love to do it for West Point, for all the guys out there that have bought in, our ladies and guys that have bought into horses for me and shown all the support they have. And I've always asked them, try to find me some horses in that profile that can get us there, because I don't think there would be anything better than standing with a big group of people, as excited as West Point people get, with my good friends at all, from Terry, Debbie, on down to everyone that works at West Point. It would be a dream come true, with a cherry on top, to do it for people who you really care about.
I'll wrap things up on this colt because he's an unknown to a lot of people. We bought him knowing we're going to take a little flake out of his ankle. That's been taken care of. That's in the process of getting taken care of. There's a little bit of time off result of that. What's your timeline? Just give me a broad one. Obviously, you can't be 100% specific, but what's your outlook in terms of, seeing him, racing, sort of latter part of the fall?
Yeah, those little P1 chips usually don't amount to much of anything. A lot of people even just don't even fool with them and take them out. I mean, if you go the conservative route like we did, take this chip out, you don't expect there to be any problems down the road. But on timing, if everything goes well, you'd love to see this horse running in the fall, October, November at Churchill. And with the new system, it seems like you go back and look at all the Derby starters this year, they kind of got fall type of starts to get there, even some of them later. It's a little different program than it used to be. All the bigger races to get you the big numbers to get in are the last two rounds. So you really want to be peaking a little bit later than it used to. It used to be you could accumulate some 2-year-old dollars when it was based on the dollar system and rack up some dollars and be able to get in the Derby. Now you really have to have your horse peak for a longer period of time, but it's later in the year that you need them to peak. So I think that I wouldn't let that bother me at all. If I was a partner wanting to get involved, I'd be thinking about next May and how we're going to get there.
Very good. Exciting stuff. Thanks for giving us a little extra time on this colt. We're going to move on to a 2-year-old who is coming around really quickly for Dale. This is a colt by Hardspun that we recently named Make It Easy. He has done so. He's living up to his namesake. He's had a really good, he had a good rep, I guess would be the best way to put it. When Barry Berkelhammer, who conditions a number of your horses down in Ocala, gave you feedback from time to time. He said this horse has been showing talent all along, and he's really been spot on. We'd love to hear in your words what you've seen since this colt made it to your barn.
Well, you know, first of all, he started out at Barry's, and if anybody doesn't know Barry, he's a pessimist. He's not one of these guys that sugarcoats anything about a horse. Matter of fact, he's wrong a lot, but he's wrong when he tells me they can't run. But he's never been wrong when he told me one could really run, and he's always been high on this horse. And I would say his average price per horse on his farm when they go down there is as high as anybody in Ocala. And he told me that he had 3 special horses he thought, and this was one of them. And he's done nothing but prove him right the whole time he's been in training up here. He's done everything textbook. I mean, we're going to knock on some wood, but everything he's done has just been perfect. And he's another one with the profile. And but he's one of them that's come around pretty fast, and he's going to be ready to run soon.
So how close are we? I know I'm not going to pin you to it, but I think there's a maiden special weight coming up relatively soon, going a short distance. Are we in the ballpark for a couple of weeks away?
Yeah, I think so. We get another good work in him, and I don't see any reason to go ahead and get him started. I'm talking about having horses prime late, but this to me is the type of horse that we would need to get on the trail for a Breeders' Cup juvenile type of horse and get him going, because they take you where they need to go. Some of them have little issues along the way you have to stop on and give them that time off. But when they're doing good and they're moving forward like him, just go on with it.
All right, we'll move on to Maui Strong. This is a colt by one of Dale's all-time best horses and a terrific sire to boot, Kitten's Joy. He's worked a couple of times more than a couple of times with Make It Easy. And he's a different sort. First of all, he's got that turf pedigree and turf breeding, maybe cut out to be a little bit later in the summer and not as precocious. But I know that he's made a nice impression on you as well, Dale. Can you elaborate on that?
Very good horse. Very nice horse. The things he's doing on the dirt with as much turf pedigree as he has are very encouraging. He is going to be a little bit later. He had a little bit of a shin come up on him, which is no big deal. Over half the turtles have come up with shins. But I think come late summer, early fall, this is going to be a really talented horse. He's done everything right all along the way. I trained his father and his mother and his grandmother. And his breeder, Mark Holiday, is a good friend I spoke about it a minute ago that runs Naira. He stayed in for a quarter with this horse, and I'm glad he did, because this is a really talented horse. It's going to be a lot of fun the next year and a half.
And what's your, sort of rough cut game plan with him going forward? I know you said he had a little bit of a tenderness in that one shin. How does that alter his time frame?
Well, we just got to play that one by ear on the thing. But I would love to get him running again late summer or early fall, and get 1 or 2 races in him at 2, and then take him south and see what we can have him ready for next year. But he is a big, beautiful horse. He's one that's just gotten bigger and stronger all along. Reminds me a whole lot of his father. He did when we bought him. And I told Terry right after the hammer dropped, I said, he looks as much and acts as much like his father as anybody I've had. And Kitten's Joy was probably the best horse. I always say he's the best horse I ever trained. He was just a phenomenal racehorse, and he went on to be a phenomenal sire. And it seems like they all have a horse out of their last couple of crops to go on and do great.
Let it be us. Let it be us.
Let it be us.
We'll get into the older horses now. Let's talk about a graded stakes winner in Giant Game. He got on a nice roll about this time last year when he won at Churchill, and then he got him in Iowa. He nailed him in the Grade 3 Cornhusker. And we're trying to get him back to that kind of form. I know that there's been some, fits and starts. Just what are we looking at for him in order to really sort of kick on to the second part of the year?
Well, he's had a few bumps and bruises along the way this year, but nothing major, and he's really doing good again now. And he went trained great this morning. We'll get a race on him over here at Churchill and see if he can take us somewhere to get him stake somewhere at the, in this summer.
What is what's your thought about sort of overall soundness, and can he keep on rolling, keep on racing beyond this year?
Yeah, he doesn't have anything major. He doesn't have any chips or anything like that, or any soft tissue injuries. He just gets a little stoved up at times, and he's getting older. He's been on around that circle a lot of times. So we got to pay him a little bit more than we used to have to, but he's got a lot of good racing ahead of him.
Perfect. On to Miss Enchanted, a 3-year-old filly, who is basically our, what is it in most furniture stores or, auto dealerships? It's the item that you take everybody to when they come to the storeroom, because she's such a pleasure to be around. She's such a dreamboat, just a sweet filly to be around. She's got talent. She ran great in her second career start when she finished second at Gulfstream. She struggled a little bit in the slop last time out. I think we've been looking to give her a tiny bit of class relief, maybe a high dollar maiden claimer. There's one next week at Churchill, and is she coming okay into that?
She's doing really well. Yeah, you're right. I always have a go-to horse in the barn for any people who don't really know horses that come around, especially the kids, to pet on and play with. And she's my go-to horse now. And everybody loves Miss Enchanted. And yeah, it's a high claiming race. She's going to run very well. She's ready to roll. She had a great work the other day. She's ready to go.
What would you say overall, your take on some of the, we're going to go in a high dollar maiden claimer, that will be no gimme, right? I mean, this has been a meet full of top competition, and it's just gotten tougher because of the purses. Would that be a fair assessment?
There are no gimmies at Churchill Downs for sure. But what you do is you chop off that top half, the royal pedigrees and the Brown Fletcher Cox horses that they've given $500,000 for, $2 million for. They're not going to be in there. You do chop them up. That doesn't mean there's not going to be some runners in there. Nobody's going to lay down and give it to her. She's going to have to go out there and run like she's been training.
Excellent. On to Mo Rhodes. This is a 3-year-old. He's coming off a 3-year-old colt. He's coming off really a lovely maiden victory at Keeneland. Lots of fun, where he just kind of scooted through late and persevered and finished up in wonderful fashion. And it's always great doing it over at Keeneland. He's entered again Friday, Churchill, starter allowance, straight 3-year-olds. I think at the time, Dale, in your own way, you said this was a big step forward from him, that was a really good moment for him in his development, going 2 turns. How do you see him coming into this next race, going up against winners?
Well, it's always a tough step for maidens. At least we have this option of going into the starter race. I thought it was a big effort out of him this day at Keeneland, and he had a rough trip, and he still came on. I'm anxious to see how he's going to run with this long stretch at Churchill Downs. That's the main thing. It came up a pretty tough race. They got him 15-1 in the morning line. I think that's a bad line myself. I don't think he'll go off that big a price. But if he does, I'll get a little piece of that action.
Looking forward to it. It's always great to take, I like those milestone races. Your very first maiden race. What does that teach you? This is his first time going up against winners after a really nice effort. That'll teach us. We'll learn something about him, I believe, in this next race, which will be worthwhile. And we're finishing up now with Stretch Ride, 3-year-old graded stakes runner. He ran 3 times as a 2-year-old at a very high level, winning his first 2 starts in impressive fashion. And then he finished 3rd in the Grade 2 Kentucky Jockey Club. He's coming back from time off to recover from some bone bruising, which was diagnosed in late February. And Dale, he's been back in the barn for, I think, about a month now. I know what he looks like, which is just an absolute monster. He's gotten bigger and stronger. How does he look, in terms of how he's moving and some of the other things that you look for in a horse that's turning 2 to 3?
He did grow a lot, and he's gotten a lot bigger and stronger. And I thought when he came in, his color was a little bit dull. I mean, he spent the whole winter, or last part of the winter was up here, and he just looked like he went through a growth spurt, and he showed it a little bit like the first week he was training, like he was a little bit lost out there maybe. I thought today he trained absolutely beautiful, and he came off the racetrack. Every day he's going to the racetrack, he's improved and getting better and better, and I think he's getting his confidence up that nothing's going to hurt him. And look at that form. I mean, that's the kind of form you want on a young horse. I'm not going to put any goal out there for us to point for. We're just going to let him tell us every day when he wants to be stepped up, when he wants to train a little harder, what we're going to do with him. But in the last week, he's moved way forward, and I thought today was a breakthrough day of training.
I get the sense, and again, I'm not going to pin you down because you just said you weren't going to be pinned down as far as a goal goes. But I get the sense that if he continues to move forward in his training, you're going to treat him like a serious racehorse.
We're going to treat him like a top horse, like a grade 1 horse, and we're going to make a stallion somewhere. He ran like it at 2, and he's acting like it right now. And today he made me feel that way about him. And so that's the way we're going to continue to treat him.
All right, you got to address this for him because I've seen him in the paddock now 3 times, and he can be a little bit of a high energy. That's one way of describing it. Ornery cuss. Have you had horses like that, or I don't know? Have you had horses that are just really really tough in the paddock situation? Maybe even in the post parade, but once they race, they're all grit, all determination, all professionalism. Have any that you could compare him to?
You mean like Shackelford?
That'd be okay.
Yeah, Shackelford, when he would be in the paddock, I swear it looked like the groom was flying a kite sometimes. He was so high in the air. And we were in the paddock for one race. I don't remember which one's the Preakness, or it was I think it was a race at Saratoga, and somebody came along and he had jumped in there about the 3rd time, me trying to get the saddle line. Somebody said, "Good luck today." I said, "You mean putting the saddle on or winning the race?" But if Shackelford hadn't acted that way, I would have thought something was wrong with him. But I tell you, this horse I think has come back with a different mentality too. He seems like he's a little bit smarter than he was. Like he's grown up mentally. He hasn't been near as tough on the racetrack or around the barn. He's still mean. Don't get me wrong. He's still mean, but he's starting to buy in and letting us do things with him. And, he acted up in the paddock at Churchill in the fall, but he was doing so good. I let him take the halter off of him and the shank, and I won't make that mistake again. The halter and shank will stay on him until he gets ready to head out to the racetrack. We usually take it off early and put a little snap shank on them, and they stand there perfectly. But each one is going to need his chain shank and the halter on until he proves to me that he's changed on race day.
I had to ask about that kind of stuff because I've seen him every single time, and I even made I made this stupid comment before the first race, like maybe we can geld him before we start racing him. And of course, you don't really do that with your horses, most of them. And I wouldn't geld him in any instance right now because he looks like he's a serious racehorse. But you know what? They all have their idiosyncrasies and their quirks, don't they? Just like human beings.
They do. Yes, they do.
All right. Well, that is the series of Q&A questions. But we're going to open it up to anybody else who has a Q&A type of question, has a chat, or wants to ask something specific to Dale about any one of the horses we just talked about. So if you have a question, go ahead and launch forward on the Q&A function or on the chat function, or if you want to raise your hand or just start talking, you can do so. I've got one from John. John wants to know about the hard spun colt and how quickly horses can come from just training and breezing to a race. What tips you off? That's the question.
Usually when we get them in from Florida or South Carolina, wherever they're coming from, they're usually breezing 1/4 of a mile to 3/8 of a mile. So like him, he came in and had a 3/8 breeze. I usually back them up for a little bit shorter and let them show me that they're as far along as the people on the farm think they are. And then we just try to stretch them out an 1/8 within 2 weeks. I usually go 1, 2, 3/8, one real slow and pick it up a little second time. And then a couple of halves, same thing. Slower first one, pick it up the second time, gallop out a little bit further. We'll get a 5/8 in them. And they just show you how quick they recover after the work. To me, that's a big deal. And I was telling everybody to listen that this horse is one of them that recovers as quick as any horse I've had, and that's the sign of a good one. I sit at the half-mile pole. So if they're working a half mile, they'll leave the 3/8 pole, and I like to work an eighth after the wire. So they'll work from the 3/8 to the 7/8, and then they'll pull up right in front of me. And when they pull up there and turn around and walk off, if they've caught their breath already and they're walking and they're not all fired up, that usually is a sign of a top horse. Now they can get where they're fired up a little bit from working and stuff, still be good. But when they do it the way he's doing it now, I told Terry the other day I got excited after the work, and that, you know, Jeff, that I don't get that excited very often on works and stuff. But I called Terry right away. When he was walking off the racetrack, if somebody had just walked up, they wouldn't have known if he was coming on or going off. I mean, he was that relaxed and already had his hand in it. And, you know, that's what good horses do. And when they get to that point, I usually like to get one more work, put them in the gate. Then you also have to get them educated at the gate. Some of them are faster and some of them are slower at that. He was really quick about learning how to break. That's one thing I can't get these farm guys to do is enough gate work. They're all afraid they're going to hurt them over there. And it is a good place to hurt a horse, but they want to leave it up to us. But he was one of the quicker ones to come around.
Excellent. I've got a question from David. He wants to know, can you give me any background on Mo Rhodes' jockey on Friday? And I haven't looked at the PPs in great detail. Is it Martine that's on him, or?
Martine Swan.
Yeah,
Martine's
that's Stretch Ride's rider from last fall.
Yeah, he rode Stretch Ride, and he's kind of my house jock. I brought him up from Peru. He was the king of South America, and recommended to me by Ramon Dominguez and Edgar Prado, two of the greats out of South America. And I just really impressed him. I tell everybody who will listen, he's going to be in this Ortiz, and he's not let me down. He's ridden some really good races for us.
Excellent.
Within
David,
time, people know who he is.
he's actually winning some races at a good clip this meet, which is that's no easy thing, because the jockey colony is pretty strong here with the Ortiz brothers popping in and out. Rosario Pratt comes here. I mean, people are wanting to win the money, that's for sure.
The colony's deep. The colony's deep. It's hard to really get rolling, but people are starting to see this kid can really ride, and he works hard, and he's just a good person too. And he's become part of the family. We've had him here a lot, and he actually lived with me for a while.
I've got a question from Jeff, who asks, promises fulfilled. Do you have any others in your barn, knowing that we're going to get one from Ocala? That's the one we bought in the March sale. Do you have any others, and what do you think of them thus far?
I've got 4 in the barn right now, and I like all 4 of them. They all are training well. Bob Barron, who owned Promises Fulfilled, raised all 4 of them. So I've watched them grow up from babies. Very impressed with them. 2 really good ones, I think, and 2 that are coming around. And then I've got Ural's colt coming, and I've got another one coming. It's kind of a weird story. This filly, we had to pick something to sell at Bob Barron, so we picked this filly out of Eloise and sold her. Well, Pinhooker ended up buying her, and she was in the March sale. I wanted somebody to buy her there. Couldn't find anybody to buy her. She sold for $100,000. I'm sitting over at the golf course one day, and a guy walks up and says, "I bought a horse at the sale. Can you train it for me?" I said, "Yeah, who is it?" He said, "A Promises Fulfilled." Not knowing that I trained Promises Fulfilled. Said, "It's not Eloisa, is it?" He said, "Yes, it is." So it's just funny. She's going to be a good horse because I can't get rid of her. She's like a bad thing. But I'm going to have 6 of them total. I really like. There's been 2 starters so far. It was the 2nd at Santa Anita and the 3rd at Belmont.
Fantastic. Well, I hope for Bob's sake and for your sake too, that these Promises Fulfilled come around a little bit, because he was a special horse for both of you. That is all the questions that I see for the time being. So I'm going to let you get rolling here, Dale. We were efficient. I hope we were entertaining. I hope we were also educational. Really appreciate everything that you do for us, and that's a bunch, more so than I think a lot of partners realize, because Dale is our go-to on a number of different functions and just helps people get stuff done in Louisville, Kentucky. So thank you for all that, and for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Jeff. And if there's any of that good magic colt come on, people, jump in there and get along for the ride. We see all these trophies behind me. That's what we do it for, and we want to make some more with him.
Excellent. Thank you, Dale. And thanks to all the partners for joining us today. We will see you next Tuesday for another Tuesdays at 2. Take care, everybody.